The legislation allows a field sobriety test administered in the event of any evidence of impairment, and a refusal to take the test results in an automatic revocation of the license and, of course, loss of the registry card. There's a marijuana tax of 7%. We're not looking necessarily just about the revenue, but that 7% still allows the local municipalities to assess any taxes that they might want to impose. So you say, okay, this is going to be done and we're going to collect a lot of political contributions from this. Guess what? No political contributions are allowed to be made by any cultivating center organization or dispensing center organization or a political action committee of a cultivation center or a dispensing organization. The sponsor said, this is a model for the nation. You know, we drafted a bill dealing with hydraulic fracturing or fracking, which we, I think, rightly called a model for the nation. I think the sponsor is right here. This legislation is a model for the nation. The product is tightly controlled from seed to sale. The objective of this bill is medicinal and not in any way recreational. I was at a breakfast this morning sponsored by the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and at that breakfast there was an oncology nurse from Memorial Hospital here in Springfield. And we talked about this bill. I said it looked like it was going to come up today, and she looked at me and she said, I hope you will vote for this bill because I have patients that the only way that they can get relief from their pain and suffering and the many pills that they take and the nausea and all the other difficulties that they suffer from being a cancer patient is if they're allowed the use of this product. Like others, I compliment the sponsor on what he has done. This is a 4-year pilot program. We can retract it in 4 years if it's not working. He's done an absolutely great job. I firmly believe the legislation deserves your support.
The chair recognizes Representative Cassidy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill, I stand in strong support of this legislation. I think the sponsor has done an amazing job of crafting a truly quality piece of legislation that will stand as a model for our country, but most importantly, will bring real and needed relief to people who desperately, desperately need it. I have more people in my life than I can count who have been waiting in agony for this opportunity, and so I am grateful to the sponsor and everyone who's worked on it that we are here at this place today. I have a brother-in-law that would not be with us if not for for making use of cannabis. He has terminal cancer. The pain drugs were sucking the life out of him, and he now enjoys a great quality of life with my sister, and they are able to enjoy what will be his last days, and he's able to have a positive experience, and my sister and my brother-in-law, who I love dearly, are able to make the best of an absolutely horrific situation as a result of this product. And I urge you all to please, as the representative said, hold the compassion part in your heart and vote yes.
The chair recognizes Representative Fine.
To the bill. I want to read you a list. Vicodin, Oxycontin, Methadone, Norco, Percocet, and morphine patches. These are all drugs that have been prescribed to my husband, who's an amputee. Some he's tried, others he won't, because they are extremely addicting and the side effects are terrible. He will wait until the absolute last minute in order to take something to find some relief. And we know when he does finally take something, he's out for the rest of the day due to the side effects of these drugs. It is so heartbreaking to see someone you love to go through such debilitating pain when there can be a solution to that pain. This would be a non-addictive, non-narcotic way to really find relief for these patients. And not only would it benefit the patients, but as we've heard from so many people who've seen people suffering, it would really benefit the families who have to watch their loved ones suffer. So I really encourage your support for this bill. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Seisha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates he will.
Representative Lang, in the 11 years I've been here, this bill has been before us many times, and I concur that you have tightened it significantly. One of the questions that remains in my mind, and you alluded to and several others did, of putting the cannabis in a brownie and eating it as a type of relief. Is that a fair, did I understand you correctly, sir?
The fact is that many people don't smoke cannabis. Many people use it in food, sir.
To my point exactly, why don't we go to the FDA and create a pill that has the cannabis in it, that is regulated by other medications?
Representative, first of all, the FDA doesn't appear to be interested in doing that. And secondly, there have been efforts to create pills. For instance, Marinol has been put in a pill. But Marinol is just one of hundreds of chemicals that are in cannabis. And the only way you can get relief from your pain and from your other results of your injuries or your medical conditions is to have all of those chemicals together, not just one, not just two, all of them.
At the outset, sir, you made the comment that the FDA doesn't seem to be interested, but if they are in fact the organization that is responsible for all of our medications, why would they not be interested?
Can't answer that, but let me tell you this, sir. The FDA approved all those narcotics that Representative Fine referred to. And each and every one of them is addictive, and each and every one of them will lay you flat on your back, and each and every one of them has led to, in this country, having more deaths by drug overdose than by traffic accident in the last 3 years.
Representative, again, I know of your strong desire to pass this legislation, and in fairness, I applaud it. I remain indifferent. I'm indifference to your point of view, and I think you know I again will be voting no. And you yourself alluded to the fact that many law enforcement agencies are against it. You noted that some are neutral. I would point out that the Illinois State Police are neutral. However, sir, they do work for the governor, and the troopers, I think, are pretty much against the bill, but they're told to be neutral, and I respect that. I understand that. The sheriffs are under no such obligation. They are opposed, and they are opposed for, you have, and again, I do believe you've tightened up the field sobriety test, but the sheriffs say it is nowhere near tight enough. And I think that in itself is a very, very significant issue. I guess where I continue to struggle with your legislation, and I have all of these years, and again, I like what Representative Boss said at the outset, that if I vote no on this, I'm still a compassionate person. I just can't get there on making marijuana legal. And again, you have brought the bill a long way. Maybe it is the perfect bill. I agree with someone who said, I think we'll see it again. And I don't think that we have really achieved what we're attempting to in order to create legislation. When I continue to struggle with the idea that the Food and Drug Administration is not interested in looking at it. I continue to struggle with cannabis, and I understand, sir, that the growers are going to be regulated, but the experience that I have had shared through my adult life is is it THC? Is that the correct product that is in cannabis?
Yes, sir.
That it can vary from one grow to another grow significantly. Is that a fair statement?
It is, sir, but we have that today. You see, today we're turning Granny into a criminal.
I get that.
Today we have turned all those people in the gallery, caregivers and people in wheelchairs, veterans, some of them, we've made them criminals. They have to go to some back alley in some town that you wouldn't want to go to in the middle of the night and get what they need to make their loved one feel better. And so, yes, there are varying degrees, but people are getting it now. In fact, we know in this room, let's not bury our heads in the sand, any high school kid in America can get their hands on marijuana. But under this bill, every ounce of marijuana that's sold will be tracked. We will know who buys it. We will know where they buy it. Law enforcement will know where they buy it. And in fact, because the growers will be regulated, they will have quality control that we don't have now.
I understand that you believe that, sir, and I'm trying to get there. I really am.
I know, sir.
But Leader Lang, you know, let's make the assumption this bill were to become law. We know there's a lot of potheads out there, folks that don't really have a medical issue. Would that be a fair statement that we could agree upon?
It is certainly true that there are people that use cannabis that should not be using it, and
You
some
said
use
that
it
so much
and
nicer
some
than I
use
did.
it to excess.
Yes, sir. We agree on that. Here's my concern. My concern is that these folks will evolve to the doctor with splitting headaches and severe back pain and all kinds of maladies.
Sir, that's not allowed in the bill. See, this is a case where, and I don't mean, I'm trying not to insult you, but this is a case.
But you're gonna.
Well, maybe. This is a case where you need to read the bill. The bill lists 33 medical conditions. It doesn't list a bad back. It doesn't list a headache. It doesn't list made-up medical issues. It lists 33 very specific medical issues. And if you do not have one of those, and you do not have a bona fide relationship with your doctor, and you do not provide all of your medical records to prove it, you are not getting the product.
Leader Lang, I absolutely believe that I could go to my doctor and go through my history of medical conditions, and I could get medical marijuana under your bill. I believe I could.
Do you have any of those medical conditions today?
I believe I do.
Then maybe you need the product, sir.
I'm doing well without it. Here's the thing, Leader, and again, you know I have the greatest respect for you, and I've watched you bring this bill a long way. I really have. But when a federal organization that is responsible for all the medications one takes in this country, responsible for all of it, doesn't even want to look at it, and law enforcement is either opposed or neutral, that speaks volumes.
Representative, the same federal organization you're talking about has approved medication that is killing people every day in this country. They're ODing, they're addicted, they're dying, they're driving, they're smashing their cars up, they're running your constituents over. The same organization and the same law enforcement people that are opposed to this bill somehow have nothing to say when the same kids that you're worried about getting a hold of Granny's marijuana are reaching into her medicine chest every day and taking their Oxycontin and their Vicodin and going to pill parties. The same kids, the same law enforcement. Now, I'm a little facetious. Of course law enforcement cares, but they aren't down here asking for a bill to do something about it.
Leader Lang, you are challenging a federal agency and basically saying in so many words that they're inept at what they do, so if they don't look at this...
Didn't say that at all, sir, because if they did the research, they would find out different. But none of the
won't they?
Because the pharmaceutical companies aren't interested in having that happen, sir. Think that one over for 30 seconds.
I don't need 30 seconds. What you're telling me is there's a conspiracy.
I'm telling you that nobody's willing to fund the research. But the pharmaceutical companies are more than willing to fund the research to sell all these products that are killing Granny.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the bill. I applaud Leader Lang for having done a great deal of work on the medical marijuana bill. I do understand his motives. I respect him as a state representative and a leader. However, this bill is absolutely a wrong piece of legislation. Listening to many of the learned representatives that have commented on this floor today, each one that I hold in the greatest esteem, I understand where they're coming from. I understand why their minds have been changed. I can't get there. And I really believe that we are making a mistake if we pass this legislation. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
Bill.
I strongly support this legislation, and I've been a co-sponsor since the day I was sworn into office. But I'm not alone. This bill has also been endorsed by the Chicago Tribune, the Chicago Sun-Times, and the State Journal-Register. It's considered to be neutral by the State's Attorneys Association. So that's a law enforcement entity that doesn't often go neutral on these sorts of issues. This bill is not about the kids smoking pot behind the garage, but it's not about prescription medications. It's somewhere kind of in between. It's a plant-based option that can provide very unique benefits to people in great need. My grandma died at the age of 94. She lived a wonderful, full life, but spent the last several weeks of her life, as so many people do, in a drug-induced haze. She was gone many days before she actually passed. She was a law-abiding citizen her entire life, and it would never have occurred to her to in any way attempt to procure an illegal product, even if it meant completely being non-dependent on the fentanyl patch that she relied on to ease her pain in those last days. Sure, narcotics are very effective at pain relief, but at what cost? We talked a little bit about the side effects earlier. Obviously, these are very, very addictive drugs. In terms of the side effects, though, they are numerous and varied. They include nausea, vomiting, dry mouth, itching, shutting down your digestive system to the point that you have to take other drugs to get things moving, depression, confusion, hallucinations, bradycardia, tachycardia, severe debilitating headache, orthostatic hypotension, which I said just because I don't know what it is, ureteric spasms, muscle rigidity. The list goes on and on. Long-term therapeutic use can basically slowly shut down your immune system. Why should we deny the opportunity to people to avoid these painful side effects? Why should we provide patients who are suffering with limited options for treatment? Shouldn't we give seriously chronically ill patients every opportunity to improve their quality of life? That's what this bill is really about. It's improving the quality of life for patients that are truly in need. It's about providing safe and legal alternatives to traditional medical treatments for people at the end of the life, like my grandma, and people living with severe, chronic, debilitating illness. The unfortunate reality is that for most families, we will face someone going through this situation at some point in our lives. Wouldn't you want to provide every opportunity for your family member to get some relief? I would. That's why I'm voting yes.
The chair recognizes Representative Belloc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield just for a few questions?
He indicates he will.
Thank you. Representative Lang, we've had quite a bit of discussion on the scheduling of this drug. So it still is an illegal substance by the FDA, correct?
That is correct.
And can a doctor prescribe this?
No,
No, because it still is an illegal drug, right?
that's correct. In the same way that pharmacies can't dispense it.
Right. So I guess in the last 4 or 6 years that we've debated this bill, and I do applaud you for how much you have worked on this bill, and I'm sensitive to all the people and the advocates who have come down and feel, you know, that this substance really does help them. But in doing laws, as we all know, lots of times one law that can help somebody can have a ramification in a negative respect on others. And you know, in most cases, that's where I'm coming from with drugs and kids. But in the medical groups, and in the 6 years, I think it's been that we've debated this bill, I have not seen, and I looked again today on the analysis, if another major medical group, nobody has approached me or anybody else that I know of asking them to change this. Have they come to you? Like I know there's concerns, the American Cancer Society, the MS Society, the Glaucoma Society had concerns the last time. I have not had them come to me and say lobby us for the bill, to pass the bill.
They also haven't come to me to tell me they're opposed to the bill. Who did come to me was 250 doctors that had a press conference yesterday in Chicago. 250 doctors, licensed doctors in the state of Illinois who want to be able to help their patients have a better quality of life.
Okay, I'm going to move on to a couple more things of the, when we debated the bill before, and I think it still stands, the president's drug czar going into the effect of the states that have had this legalization have seen an increase in the usage of drugs by children in the schools.
That is actually not the case. The last study I saw, and we can debate our studies, the last studies I saw showed that in 3/4 of the states where medical marijuana, medical cannabis was allowed, the incidence of children, teenagers having marijuana stayed about flat, and in several states it actually went down.
I have in Colorado, which seems to be a state, especially since they've legalized the recreational use of it, that since 2009, public school suspensions for drug violations acclaimed to the use through users have increased 45%. Expulsions for drug violations increased 35%. Statistics in the United States of children in our public schools across the United States, 1 out of every 5 children in the 12th grade is using marijuana in a week. That's 25%. Is everybody listening to that? 25% of our children in the 12th grade are using marijuana. 1 out of every 11 in the 8th grade are using marijuana. Those statistics are astonishing, and that's a concern of the ramification of this that I'm concerned about, and I know a lot of other people are too.
If I may respond.
Sure.
Every high school student in America can get their hands on marijuana, but what marijuana is it, and where did it come from? Under this bill, we will know where every gram of marijuana came from, who bought it, where it came from, how they got it, what their medical condition was that allowed them to get it, and children can get marijuana now. Having it in grandma's medicine chest isn't going to make them more likely to get it. What they're more likely to get out of grandma's medicine chest is Oxycontin and Vicodin and Norco and all these other very addictive, dangerous narcotics. And I would submit this to you, Representative. No one in the history of the world has ever been addicted to marijuana, and no one in the history of the world has ever died from an overdose of marijuana. And all of the things that you want these patients to take instead of medical cannabis are killing them and killing their children.
But marijuana is the most widely used illicit drug in the United States. That's confirmed.
I can't argue that point.
Okay. So anyways, then I wanted to just ask a couple questions about the enforcement. We had a lot of discussion, and today we've had no discussion about who is going to enforce all of this. The public health police? Who?
I'm sorry, I did not hear your
Who
question.
will enforce this law? You have said public health over and over again. Is that who's going to enforce this?
Representative, there's all sorts of enforcement mechanisms in this bill, as Representative Harris mentioned. First, the Department of Public Health has to ensure that the patient and the caregiver are legal and qualified patients and caregivers. So that's where it starts. Next, everyone along the way has to be licensed, background checks. No one will be able to run a facility, whether it be a grow facility or whether it be a dispensary, without background checks, fingerprints. You can't get a license if you're a felon or have been convicted of a drug charge. The state police will have and every law enforcement will have the ability to get into the database to see who's purchasing and make sure that they're not being sold more than they're allowed to buy under the law. And it goes on and on and on. The Department of Agriculture is going to have rules to regulate the growers. The Department of Financial and Professional Regulation is involved. Law enforcement is involved. Just like every other law, Representative, if you break the law, you can go to jail.
Well, break the law, you can go to the jail. This is a federal law. It's an illegal substance. It's a federal law right now.
Representative, the federal government has not arrested any grannies with colon cancer for using a product to help them to feel better. The only people the federal government has shut down are growers or dispensaries that are violating state law or have huge marijuana fields with all sorts of excess and residue that they're not properly disposing of. The federal government is not arresting any patients for taking care of their health.
I have a quote here from the U.S. Attorney Central District of Illinois saying that growing, distributing, and possessing marijuana in any capacity other than as part of a federally authorized research program is a violation of federal laws regardless of state laws addressing such activities. The Department of Justice will appropriately enforce federal laws with all of its provisions and criminal and civil remedies in all states.
The key word there, Representative, is appropriate. So I just told you that no sick patient has ever been arrested by the federal government for purchasing and using medical marijuana in states where it's legal. 0 people.
Okay. Then the last, I would say, is when we talked about the young people and the abuse of marijuana in the system, in a town hall meeting that I've had 2 town hall meetings in the last year and a half on heroin, all of the young people that came to testify before those town hall meetings on their own begged me not to vote for the medical marijuana bill. I know you do not believe it's a gateway drug, but every single one of them begged me not to vote for this bill. And we had 28 deaths in DuPage County last year of heroin. And those young people who have gone straight testified at that meeting and said, we know that there are people that want this drug, but there are a lot of us that feel it's a gateway drug, and we've seen our best friends die in front of us. And those are what I talked about when I started, the ramifications of sometimes passing a law that's good for a certain population, but can have other ramifications for others. Thank you.
There are 4 more people seeking recognition. We would hope that this is a very important question. Keep your marks as succinct as you possibly can. The chair recognizes Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I, like many of the people who spoke before, have some concerns about the legalization of marijuana. But this isn't legalization of marijuana. It's legalization of medical marijuana or marijuana only for medical purposes. I've consistently voted no. As a former prosecutor, I told my senator, Senator Hayne, who was a proponent of this in the Senate, that previous bills I was not going to support. I've seen firsthand what drugs can do to families, what drugs can do to people who end up in the criminal justice system. But this is not legalizing marijuana broadly. It's legalizing it for very specific uses for people and family members and loved ones who are suffering every day right before our eyes. I think if many of the people who voted no on this bill in the past would not have voted no, we wouldn't have the bill as it currently exists with all of the restrictions, all the precautions, all the criteria to make sure we can do everything we can to stop abuse. People who vote yes or no on this will do it for a variety of reasons. I would say many people on this floor will vote no because they think it might lead to greater drug use. Some may vote no because politically they don't believe they can vote yes. But I don't think that there's a person on this floor who would agree that we should, if we can, do something to stop the pain, the suffering, the everyday drudgery of the people and loved ones who have these terrible and dreadful illnesses. So today, I wish that we didn't have to stand here and defend ourselves vis-a-vis other states. Those states do not have laws with these types of precautions. Those states have made mistakes. Those states' laws are too widespread and too open. And because of those states and what the abuses have occurred in those states, we have to stand and figure out whether those abuses will occur here. I think, as Representative Harris so aptly pointed out, as Representative Tryon pointed out, there are so many criteria to make sure that the illnesses are listed, that it has to be prescribed by a doctor, the medication, the marijuana is going to be tracked, and even the users have to get background checks. Even the users have to get background checks. So today I'm standing and I'm going to vote in support of the bill because I believe there are the precautions in this bill to stop those types of abuses that we've seen in other states. So I'm going to vote to help relieve the pain, help relieve the suffering, so that we can give a moment of peace to these individuals, if this is the only thing that works, who are suffering this great illness and great pain.
The chair recognizes Representative Gordon Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
Bill.
In the past, I have not supported this piece of legislation for many of the reasons that have already been discussed, so I will be brief. Many of us come to this chamber with a set of experiences that shape how we see the world. And one of the most difficult things in this world is to watch someone that you love die in pain. The only thing more difficult than that is to watch them live their lives in pain. My office manager, her name happens to be Kami Keller-Strauss. Kami Keller-Strauss lost her daughter in August of 2011.